Welcome back to Explaining Everything, the channel where we dive into the stories and mysteries behind everyday things. Today's question comes from one of our curious viewers, Microwave Champion 33. Thanks for the suggestion, Champion. You asked, how do fish survive in frozen lakes? If you've ever looked at a frozen lake and wondered how fish aren't just floating there like little ice cubes, you're not alone. It seems unfair that we need coats, boots, and heated blankets while fish are just chilling, literally, underwater. So, how do they survive when their entire world turns into an ice bath? Do they have little fish-sized parkas? Are they just that tough? Let's break it down, right here on Explaining Everything. First off, lakes don't freeze from the bottom up. If they did, fish would be in serious trouble. Instead, water does something unusual. It becomes less dense when it freezes, which is why ice floats instead of sinking like a normal solid. This creates a frozen layer on top that actually insulates the water below, keeping it from freezing solid. So while the top of the lake looks like a tundra, the fish below are swimming in liquid water, just at a very chilly temperature. It's like nature's version of a heated blanket, except, you know, without the heat. Okay, so the water under the ice isn't frozen, but it's still ridiculously cold. Shouldn't fish, you know, freeze? Not if they have antifreeze proteins. Some fish, especially those in really cold environments, produce special proteins that stop ice crystals from forming in their blood. These proteins basically act like tiny bouncers, preventing ice from turning their insides into a snow cone. And these aren't just any ordinary proteins. These things are so good at stopping ice formation that scientists are actively studying them for medical and industrial uses. They're looking at ways to use these fishy superpowers to improve organ transplants, enhance frozen food storage, and maybe even develop better cryogenics. Meanwhile, we humans still struggle with keeping ice cream from turning into a rock in the freezer. Fish have been nailing this survival game for millions of years, and we're just trying to catch up. Honestly, if there were an Olympics for surviving extreme conditions, fish would be gold medalists. Another trick up a fish's sleeve? They go into low power mode. When temperatures drop, fish slow their metabolism, meaning they don't need as much energy, food, or oxygen. They just kind of float around, conserving energy and waiting for warmer days. It's basically the underwater version of sitting on the couch for hours, except instead of binge-watching shows, they're conserving every possible calorie to stay alive. Some species even bury themselves in mud at the bottom of the lake to stay insulated. They sit there, barely moving, barely breathing, just existing for months. So while we complain about cold weather and desperately cling to our heated blankets, fish are out here proving that sometimes the best survival strategy is to just chill, literally. But wait, if the lake is covered in ice, how do fish get oxygen? Wouldn't they eventually run out of air? Good question, fellow oxygen-breathing creature. Luckily, fish don't need nearly as much oxygen when they're in their slowed-down state. Plus, oxygen still seeps into the water through cracks in the ice and from aquatic plants that photosynthesize under the surface. So, while humans panic if they can't breathe for 30 seconds, fish are down there like, "Hey, I'll take a few slow breaths and call it a day." Seriously, they're built different. Of course, sometimes nature doesn't play fair. If a lake is too shallow, it can freeze all the way to the bottom, which is bad news for fish. Also, if the ice stays too thick for too long, it can block out sunlight, which stops underwater plants from producing oxygen. When that happens, fish can actually suffocate. This unfortunate event is called Winterkill, which sounds like the name of a bad action movie, but is really just a tragic way for a fish to go. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's proof that even the toughest survivors have limits. So, let's put this into perspective. While we're layering up in thermal socks, 3 hoodies, and a coat that makes us look like a marshmallow, fish are out here surviving literal ice-covered lakes with nothing but built-in antifreeze, a slowed-down metabolism, and sheer willpower. They don't complain. They don't need blankets. They don't even get a warm cup of cocoa. They just keep swimming. Meanwhile, we panic if our Wi-Fi slows down in winter. We rage when we have to scrape ice off the car. We dramatically announce that we literally cannot feel our fingers after being outside for 2 minutes. Fish, they're vibing in sub-zero water for months and somehow making it look effortless. So next time you're shivering because you forgot your coat, just remember, fish are out there, proving once again that nature is both ridiculous and amazing. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe give a little nod of respect to those little fishies that adapt to every challenges Mother Nature throws at them. Also, if you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next time here in the channel that answers all the why, what, who, where, and how questions you've always wondered about, here on Explaining Everything.